Greetings, travelers. I know everyone is wondering why I'm behind on my weekly video upload schedule, and the answer is, I have been playing an unhealthy amount of Bloodborne. I am here to say that Ludwig sucks, even though he's not the hardest boss in the DLC. Now I'm basically a decrepit old man at this point, or I guess a boomer is what the people call it today. Is hardcore parkour still a thing? I feel like it was 10 years ago. Well anyways, platforming challenges in Final Fantasy XIV are pretty much their version of any rage game that has come out in the last 3 years, comparable to something like Getting Over It. This is because when you jump, you have no influence over your character until you reach the ground. Thank you, Nintendo, for removing the importance of DI, just like how you removed the Big House tournament from existence. So before I explain how to climb, we're going to have to learn how jumping works from a pure mechanical perspective. Now I play this game on keyboard, because I like the sound of the sweet clicking from my Cherry MX Red switches on my mechanical keyboard, and I must make sure that I maintain a raging erection while gaming. Now if you're on controller, I must apologize for your loss, as this guide will probably not be remotely helpful. However, I do believe my content to be moderately entertaining, and these principles will always remain the same. When moving, we have 4 options on keyboards: forward, strafe left, straight right, and walking backwards. In terms of speed, moving forward and strafing in any direction are completely identical. It takes very little time to get up to full walking speed, but for the sake of clarity, if you are at full walking speed and you jump, I will call this a full jump. If you tap the movement button in the jump almost immediately after, you can get smaller jumps in terms of length. The variety of shorter length jumps that you can make is quite surprising. This movement tech is super duper intricate, and almost equally as unimportant to knowing how to do jump puzzles. The way to be good at jumping puzzles is to make as many full jumps as possible and angle them correctly, because this is the only way to get the most consistent results. Also, walking backwards is slower than forwards. These small jumps are also consistent in their length, but I will not be using any of them for this tutorial. And finally, sprinting will make you jump farther. With that, you are now ready to suffer. Before I start this 70-star run, this is the part of the video where I ask you to subscribe if you're new, and if you're already subscribed, thank you for your contribution. I'm still working on my live streaming skills, so you can always try to check me out on Twitch if you'd like. Now let's just get into it. You will probably want to teleport to Kugane first. If you don't know what the jump puzzle is useful for, you should probably look up what the sightseeing log is. This puzzle will get you both a lookout point at the top of the big tower in the middle of town, and also this little lamppost. Now be prepared to fail. A lot. Because mistakes in this puzzle will set you back quite a bit. While this video will give you the strategy that I use, execution will probably take you a little bit of time. We begin by getting on this fence. You might think this is easy, but I managed to screw this up more than any other jump on this attempt. These first few jumps are some of the most annoying, but thankfully you do not lose a ton of progress for failure. I angle my first jump here into the wall. This way our full jump doesn't send us straight over the peg. This next jump will never work. I like to angle my jumps outwards because you can land pretty much on the edge of nothing and it will still count as collision. However, for the second jump, I would recommend trying to go for a shorter jump than a full one, as it is slightly easier. If you fail, you'll just have to keep trying. For the last 2 little logs, jump outwards at a diagonal and make sure you get these full length jumps in. If you fall short, you didn't go up to full walking speed first. Once you're on the last log, you can pretty much jump into this ledge relentlessly and it will eventually work. But I recommend jumping from about as far back as possible. Welcome to the first layer of the Inferno. From here, navigate around the right side until you find some nice, thick wood sticking out. Getting on the fence is annoying because you need to get on the stupid little pole in the corner. Try tapping jump and walk at the exact same time to get those little jumps and hopefully get on the pole. Now from here, you have to jump out on a diagonal to easily get onto this next peg. This next series of pulls has its own checkpoint basically. I usually strafe for this segment because it makes the visuals easier for me. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the speed of walking and strafing is exactly the same. I use full length jumps for all these even if the pole is closer to me. It will work, you're going to have to trust me on that one. The last jump may reject you, just like most women do in my life. But if you're persistent enough, it'll eventually let you up. Now, that was not me telling you to relentlessly pursue someone. Please respect the boundaries of other people. Now, be careful when you jump around the side of the building here. Always angle your jumps into the building, or else you can easily fly off the edge into the void. This is another segment where I prefer to strafe for better visibility. Now this jump, you want to make sure that you jump at about this spot down the decorative roof. If you jump too late, you'll be too low to the ground and bounce off the bar. It can be a bit tricky, but if you miss this one, it doesn't set you too far back. After that one, I once again switched to strafing for better visibility, but if you prefer to walk forward, that will also work here. Once again, even if it doesn't look like it, I'm using full-length jumps here for the pegs that are closer together. This next segment is a real piece of work. I angle my camera and try to land on the very edge of the beam. It's easy to lose confidence here, but honestly, it's better to angle out than the possibility of getting clipped by the little wall right there. Past that, I find strafing to be easier here for visibility, and for this next jump, I once again angle myself to try to land on the edge of the peg as far out as possible. Now, this is where I finally use sprint on our ascent. I angle myself so that I sprint jump here. It's kind of like I'm aiming at the corner in between where this beam and that little wall sticking down meet. This way I will hit the wall at the back of the beam, and this may or may not bounce you into infinity, but from my experience, you usually don't completely whiff and just end up on the platform. Now stop. Make sure that you disable the sprint buff before continuing. I usually angle myself into the wall at the back of the beam for these next two jumps. This way you can't possibly jump too far. When walking around at this next segment, be careful with your jump. I angle myself to try not to overshoot and fly off the ledge, but use a method that doesn't send you flying horizontally. I like to carefully back my ass up right here to make sure I don't go too fast off the ledge. Now this is where you will probably feel yourself clenching. You have to make sure your angle is far enough out to make this next jump. I see so many people get caught on the wall. This is the angle that I use, and once again, I am trying to get as far to the edge of the peg as possible. And once again, remember that you can land pretty close to seeming like there's nothing there, and it still counts as collision. And this jump is pretty much the same concept. Now, if you made it this far, this is the last jump you need to make it to the top. Once again, it is very easy to angle it too close to the building, so I usually aim about here. With that, you are now on top of the world, baby. If you're short enough, you can get through this little secret passage, or you can just walk around. This is how you make it up to the top, and there should be a lookout point up here. These jumps are not exactly super easy to get on the first try, but there's pretty much no penalty for missing them. And now, it's time for the last jump to get to the lamppost. I line myself up with this line of roof tiles, and make sure that I can hold forward to go in as straight of a line as possible. You will need to sprint to make this jump work. You will want to time your jump right as you sprint by this little gold thing here on the side. Thankfully, I have an easy guide for this. First, you're going to pop sprint. Then, you're going to leap right as you walk next to this gold thing. Then, you're going to let go of any movement buttons and pray. Now we scream, ah! Then we finally touch down. Just remember, SPLAT. Yes, I stole that joke from Drake and Josh, Season 4, episode titled Helicopter. If you get it right, you should land on this lamppost. People will usually walk by and admire you for your insane display of dexterity. And if anyone blows up next to you as a blue mage, feel free to res them, and they can bypass the entire jump puzzle and get that lookout point on the lamppost. So yeah, that's all I got for you here. Now get out there and fail as many times as it takes to succeed, but also respect people's boundaries.